Welcome to the solo cast of Firecode Tech. In these episodes, it's just going to be me, your host, Gus Gagliardi. There's going to be a range of topics, but I'm going to talk about specific technologies, installation standards, codes and how they work, as well as some other interesting topics that don't neatly fit inside of the context of a normal interview. Hello all, welcome to episode 57 of Firecode Tech. On this episode, we're speaking with Majd. Majd is a mechanical engineer with a background in programming and all things Revit. On this episode, we talk about Majd and the company he works for, Bird Tools, which stands for Building Information Research and Development, which is a very interesting company with some custom tools for Revit users. If you enjoy Revit or anything on the more technical side of design, you're going to really enjoy this episode. Majd and I talk about APIs, design and how automation is going to play a role in the future, what does the future of Revit look like, and what are some ways that we can develop and improve the software, or what competitors are looking to do to capture the market share. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on social media. Also, if you could do me a huge favor, you want to support the pod, please go and give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Let's get into the show. Well, Majd, thank you for coming on the podcast. Welcome to Firecode Tech.
Thank you for having me, Gus, and it's a pleasure to be here.
I'd like to get the interviews kicked off with asking the individual about their background and just to get a little bit of context about their career and their valuable experience for the listeners. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a mechanical engineer with a background in MEP engineering and a master's degree in mechanical engineering. And before starting, so I'm founder at Building Information Researchers and Developers, which is a company behind Bird Tools, a company located in Estonia. Before that, I've worked as an MEP engineer and a BIM manager for several years, and I have experience with mainly, so my background is an MEP one, and I have experience, I've worked on several MEP projects from commercial buildings, big transportation buildings such as metro stations and airports, and most of my work was MEP engineering and BIM management. So we found Revit a couple of years ago, back when I was still an engineer, and most of our work shifted from AutoCAD to Revit, and that's where we started to find new ways to do stuff and to automate stuff and to compensate lack that maybe Revit has, or maybe that we feel that we need to implement. And I started enjoying that, and that's what led me to start my development journey, and that all of that led to the creation of Bird Tools and the company. So that's a summary of my background. So
Very cool. Very cool. I appreciate the high-level overview of your background. It's interesting to hear that you have a mechanical engineering background and you've somehow wandered, really become invested in this BIM or Revit space. It seems like sometimes I see people who are like BIM managers or who are very invested in Revit. They come from more of a computer or software background. So that's interesting to me that you have a mechanical engineering background.
To tell you the truth, so software development and IT knowledge was kind of my hobby. So a hobby of mine and a career of mine kind of intersected somewhere, and that's what led to Bird Tools. So, and I think that's healthy to have people from architectural background, from engineering background, take on software development, because one of the problems with the industry is that you have software developers coming from a computer background and maybe engineers that don't really relate to software. So the software solutions that are being implemented, kind of you feel that there's a certain a distance from what actual engineering or what the actual domain looks like. So having someone that has both sides of the industry would maybe enable you to create better software that's better adapted to the industry's needs. So that's something I appreciate. We're seeing a lot of people with different backgrounds starting to take on software development and implementing APIs. So that's something I appreciate right now within our domain and industry. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, that's kind of how I found this podcast and really got more interested in BIM tools for myself was as a hobbyist. I started to code and to do a little bit of web development. And, as soon as you kind of start to and get invested in it and learn about it, you just realize how much interesting work there is to be done in the field. And so, yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying and the varied perspectives of people bringing people together, all kinds of roles to understand and make better tools. I think that's a great point. Just for how to just create better content and tools for the whole industry. So I love hearing that about that. That's good stuff.
Yeah, glad it's mutual.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was listening to one of your podcast appearances you have on your uh, bird tool. Well, I guess we should start with would you tell people a little bit about bird tools and, like what just the company's goals and, just a high level overview of bird tools? You give us a broad background of a little bit of your professional role history and your kind of project background, but speak a little bit more about what bird tools is for the listeners that might not know about it.
So bird tools is a package of Revit add-ins that aims to try to first automate some of the boring and repetitive and mundane tasks that a user encounters every day. And second objective of bird tools as a pack is to try and find new ways to implement functionalities that are not really, so maybe you can do them through the API, but it's kind of hidden deep somewhere that no one really found. So there's a lot of stuff that have already been done, but we try to explore stuff that we kind of are the first people to do. Maybe we'll talk in detail about that later on in the podcast. So that's bird tools as a pack. So bird tools, the bird in bird tools comes from the company name, which is Building Information Researchers and Developers. So bird is actually an acronym for the company name. Building Information Researchers and Developers is a company based in Estonia. So we have our software pack that is bird tools, and we provide software development services. So let's say there's a company that needs their own automation workflow, internal one that needs to be customized, because as you know, standards are everything but standards. So every locality, every region has its own set of rules. Everyone has his own way to design. Everyone has his own way to sometimes even from company to another, from firm to another, you have internal standards that differ. So to try to automate and accommodate that for everyone, we provide that custom development software development service that tries to enable companies to have their own solution. So basically, these are the services that the company behind bird tools provides. The goal is always to try and make a difference, to try and spread knowledge, to try and bring value to the industry. So along the journey, it's not just a business, it's also a certain journey to try and teach people or bring knowledge to people or spread knowledge about maybe Revit, about BIM, about software development. There's a lot of knowledge sharing on social media, on our blog, because you want to bring value along the way. So that's one of the main goals and missions of us, of what I'm doing in general. And a certain future goal is to try and see where we're going and try to find what is the API of the future. What is it? Should we do our own API for the future? Should we find a certain API that should be the base of the future BIM platform? So that's always the goal, and that's always the research and development part of the business that we're constantly investigating and working on to find what the future would look like and to try and be part of it. So that's basically who we are and what we do.
Yeah, I like that. I heard you speak a little bit about your experience with the API and kind of how the API for Revit, and there are people listening who might not know what an API is, but it's an application program interface. So it's how for coding or for different ways to integrate with a platform or a piece of software. And so what Majd is talking about is how can we make the way that we interface with Revit or BIM services more robust, and what does the future of that interface look like? So I think that's a very fascinating topic. What are some of the like big gaps or areas in which the current API could improve in your opinion or your estimation?
So currently, the main platforms that is being used to implement BIM everywhere is Revit. So Revit, the great thing about Revit is that it can accommodate several disciplines, from architecture to structure to MEP to, so every discipline within the AEC industry is kind of accommodated. But the problem with Revit is that it's not really a multi-platform or a multi-operating system software. So you're stuck with a certain platform, which is Windows. That's one problem. Another problem is that so Revit is like a 22-year-old, maybe even a 24-year-old software. I believe it first came out in 1998. So the engine behind the internal engine that Revit uses is almost as old as Revit. So it hasn't had its own main revamp. So it's really lacking a lot of new features that you see, for example, in the gaming industry, or in web apps. So this is where Revit has really is limited. So, and these are some of the platforms and technologies that we need to investigate. The gaming engines, the gaming engine integration, the technologies behind gaming engines. That's something that would improve performance and would improve, especially the rendering part of the outcome. Also, something that you need to investigate to make maybe enable more features is multi-platform compatibility, and being compatible with several devices and several browsers and several platforms. That's where you need to investigate all web APIs that are around, and all web technologies that emerge on a daily basis. So, basically, now Autodesk, if you're talking about Autodesk and focusing on Autodesk are introducing Forge, which is something that we started working on heavily. And Forge is kind of supposed to be the API of the future that is supposed to answer some of these limitations. It has already answered some. There's still in an early phase, so we'll see how it evolves. But the future has started to be implemented as a series of web APIs. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting that, we need to take a look at other industries and how they are growing and developing software and just applications online and learn from what they're doing. I think that, I wouldn't have known that before you told me about how the kind of internals of it haven't had a revamp, but I could see that now in retrospect, looking back at the development for Revit. And so I don't know. I think it's an interesting topic, like a full revamp of Revit or a competitor to Revit that has the abilities to, embrace some of the more futuristic technologies and interfaces and software development and whole. I think that that would be interesting, but I haven't seen anybody who's really even close to capturing the market like Revit does. Maybe you would have some insight on other people who are competing or starting to compete. Have you seen anything like that?
There's plenty of people that are doing amazing work. The problem is that everyone is taking one side of the industry and not the other. So you see a lot of great work in the architectural side. You see a lot of great work on the structural side. Not much on the MEP side, unfortunately. But that's the main problem. So Revit has it all. So until we find someone, I think we stuck with Revit for at least 5 or 10 years. Five, if you're optimistic, five. I think at least 10 years because of mainly of that. Because anyone who's starting that is taking it from one perspective and not all perspectives. That's the main problem. But there's a lot of work. So TestFit are doing great work. There's great work that is being done in trying to create some interoperability. We're doing some of that stuff within Tools, interoperability between several platforms, and there's a certain solution that is emerging that is trying to make interoperability between several platforms and softwares, which is Spackle. So Spackle are trying to do that, trying to make some interoperability between, let's say, Revit and Rhino and or Revit and other software platforms. So that's one way to start. But having the solutions that can have underneath every discipline, that's something I don't see happening anytime soon. That's where Revit thrives, and that's why Revit is gonna stick for a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I appreciate that extra explanation on people kind of specializing and having good solutions for specific disciplines, but yeah, kind of the umbrella, everybody except for civil, is always encapsulated in Revit. And so I would imagine
Yeah.
it would be hard to shake that base that Revit has, but that's very interesting. So, speaking on like, some of the tools you made, the one that I saw from social media that you were showing that I know gives me pain all the time is the the leader tool, which I thought was great because it aligned all of your leaders at the same angle, and the arm for the leader was the same length, and it was all kind of standardized them. But yeah, like specifically, I don't know, would you give like some examples of some specific tools that you've made so people can have some idea of like if they might be useful for them or if they should go check you out. But I'll drop some links in the show notes if people want to go look. But also you could just Google bird tools and you'll find bird tool developers. But yeah, would you talk about a couple of the software solutions that you guys have made?
Yeah, so one of them is obviously the tag alignment tool you mentioned. So it comes from a personal pain with several projects where I had to do that myself sometimes, and that's where it was born. And because you need, unfortunately, we're still using annotations. I look forward to a day where we can just use our maybe mobile phone and have all that information show up in a neat way. But that day it has come, and it started to be implemented, but we're still stuck with sheets and production drawings for a while. So having neat tags and good presentation is always a necessity, and that's where the tag alignment tool was born, to try and not just align tags and fix their angles, which is one of the features, but to also try to arrange those tags in a way where they don't interfere, where they don't cross each other. So that's one of the tools. Another tool that we've developed and published is Clash Preventer. So clash detection is one of the So it's a necessity right now, and one of the main advantages that BIM gives us over all the CAD workflows. So we try to push that further into a prevention or avoidance concept. So instead of you doing clash detection, why not just while you draw, let's say, a duct or a pipe or a wall, have a certain clash notification happen as soon as you have a clash and help you avoid that clash immediately. So that's the purpose of the app. It runs inside Revit, and as soon as you have a clash, it will tell you you're clashing. If it's not a clash, or if that wall is temporary, or if you're gonna place an opening later on, you can whitelist it. If not, you can fix it on immediately. So instead of the old workflow where you model your entire thing full of clashes, send it to Navisworks, run the clash. So you need to export it to Navisworks. Navisworks would take, so the export process would take a lot of time for big models. You would be stuck waiting for an NWC file to be generated, then open it in Navisworks, generate a model, assign every clash to someone, send it back to the people in an HTML format. The people, your team mates would have to open that HTML report, check each clash individually, or try to select it in Revit, then find it in Revit. So, and then fix the clash or whitelist. So that process would take time. We've kind of removed all that workflow and just made it. You get the notification automatically. You can select your clash in 3D, see it, fix it automatically, and you can export repos, input repos. You can even, it has compatibility with Navisworks, so you can import repos from Navisworks. So that's another solution. A third solution, we have 10 apps. I'm gonna try to talk about the rest quickly. So we have apps that convert CAD to BIM. So if you have a layout with CAD blocks, you can just link the CAD, not import it, link it to a Revit file, and just click on that CAD link, and it will find the blocks and either automatically find the nearest ceiling and place your new families in the locations of your CAD blocks. Or it might also host them to the nearest wall, or it might host them to the nearest level. So that's one app. We have apps that batch process stuff, batch export to NWC, for example. We have apps that can batch process models through Dynamo and can batch process BIM-C60. So that's one of the things we're working on, implementing Forge within Revit to try and process BIM-C60 within Revit. So implementing Forge APIs within Revit is something that we're working on for an upcoming app as well. We have several apps that can also, so we have an app that is called Raven. It's a communicator that allows you to monitor. So as you know, now everything has moved to the cloud, and we're hosting models to BIM-C60. So, and the usual work sharing monitor doesn't support BIM-C60, and you need to monitor the work sharing of your users so that you don't have overlapping synchronized with central operations. So we found a solution for that. It's called Raven, and the Raven can monitor user activity and allow you to synchronize while no one else is synchronizing. So it's a work sharing monitor for BIM-C60. And yeah, so that's, I've tried to summarize as quickly as possible, but you can check out all those apps on our website. Just Google bird tools. It's the first result. There's some results that are actual birds using tools in the image section, but yeah, the very first result is our website, so you can check them out. And
yeah, yep. That's funny. Yeah, there's some good examples and videos on the website of the different tools in use. So if you have any interest in going and taking a look and seeing some of you guys also have free tools. So there are some that have a cost to them, but they're not crazy by any means, especially compared to what software of any sort can cost for Revit or just in general. But yeah, go check it out if you're interested in some tools to maybe make your life a bit easier on Revit. But Majd, I wanted to talk to you about what kind of programming languages you use to make these tools, or how you got started. I mean, did you start in Dynamo and just kind of slowly ramp up to something like C++ or Python, or what are you using?
So for me, I've started programming a long time ago with Visual Basic and the .NET platform. Now, if we're talking about Revit, somehow I skipped the whole Dynamo and Python stuff for some weird reason. It's not really weird. I started before Dynamo was really a thing, or was really back when I started, macros were the thing. So Dynamo didn't ship by default with Revit. So I started with C# macros because I already had an experience with the .NET platform, and I already had C and C++ knowledge, so C# was easy for me to learn, and that's how I got started. Now, Dynamo is definitely a great place to start because it introduces anyone who wants to start that automation journey to the automation concept. You're gonna hit some limitations with Dynamo, some functionality limitations, a lot of performance limitations. So that's where, for functionality limitations, you first try to find packages, and there's a lot of packages that have some of the functionalities that you need and don't find in the out-of-the-box nodes. So we also have collaborated with Sigma of AEC Solutions to create a package called Sparrow. There's a lot of packages that are great, Rhythm, data shapes, that give you a lot of functionalities that you can't find out of the box. But even with all the packages, you're still gonna feel that you need more, and that's where you start. If you're starting with Dynamo, you might start creating your own custom Python nodes. Maybe people say that Python is easier. I think that's subjective, but if Python is easier, you can start with Python within Dynamo after you've mastered Dynamo and all of the out-of-the-box nodes. But the ultimate goal is to create add-ins, because add-ins are easier to deploy and easier and they have performance that they can outperform Dynamo or Python by a lot. So once you're deploying to a company, add-ins are the way to go. I had a NAU class last year where I talked about that specifically. If you want to check it out, maybe we can post a link to that. But yeah, what we do is create add-ins within Revit. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you're going down the road of software development, you're gonna need every API, every programming language that is there. So right now for Revit, we're working on C#. We still get some AutoCAD jobs. So for AutoCAD, you're gonna go and find Lisp, which is a programming language from the 1960s. So every software has its own programming language that is better for it. You're gonna have a lot of requests to create stuff in Python, and we're working on a lot of software development ventures, you're applying and using the Forge API. So a lot of companies, the ones that are more innovative and try to be more of try to be early adopters, are trying to implement Forge within their systems. And we're among a few software developers that have investigated Forge to a great extent and that are really familiar with all its APIs. So once you go Forge, you need to check a lot of frameworks that are suited to web development, such as React, Angular. You need to do a lot of HTML coding. You need to be familiar with JavaScript and TypeScript. So and really, you need every so as much as you can. So the more programming languages that you know, the better. So yeah, you need to deal with it all.
Wow, that's a good explanation. I appreciate that, Maj. It seems intimidating as somebody from the outside in, and I mean, I started out really interested in web development, so that surprises me. I've not seen anything about where like React and front end kind of software interfaces with like the built environment in Revit and whatnot. So that's interesting to hear you talk about Forge and how that is changing things and pushing some JavaScript and TypeScript into the equation as well. And then so, yeah, I don't know. That sounds intimidating. So for somebody who's starting out, you would still tell them to try to go from using Dynamo, which is a built-in kind of visual coding with Revit, or would you like, I don't know, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. I have a little bit of experiences, but sometimes I would think I would just like to skip and go straight to Python or a C language if I could get some efficiencies, and I'm going to go that way in the long run anyways. But I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, so my own advice to anyone who wants to get started is so you have two ways. You can go visual programming, or you can go to the old school script-based programming. So if you want, I would suggest to someone getting started to try both. So open Dynamo, try to do a workflow. And if you want to try writing scripts, you can do that either within Dynamo, or you have also a certain macro possibility, so you can write Python and C# macros. If you prefer Python, you can totally do that within the macro manager that is right next to Dynamo, but it's a button that is colorless and really very small, so people skip it. But it's also a possibility to start your automation journey. So for anyone who wants to get started, I also suggest both ways. So try visual programming through Dynamo, and also try scripted programming, and see which one fits you better. If you feel that it's hard for you to understand a programming language and programming syntax, so just go to a visual one, and as long as you're achieving what you want to achieve, it's fine. And maybe I'll tell you a small secret. I'm more comfortable with old school programming than visual programming. So I'd rather myself as a programmer, I would find myself always going to a certain script-based programming methods than a visual one. I feel more comfortable, and I feel that I can write a certain routine way faster than I can just assemble it and wire it together. So each one has its own way, and I'd suggest for anyone to try both and see which one fits him better. So
yeah, that's great advice, Majd. I appreciate that. I've never heard anybody say that before, but I think you're right. Why not tinker around with both and see if one speaks to you? So I think that's good advice. I appreciate that. So like I mentioned a little bit, bird tools, and you have been in the part of creating different YouTube videos and content. Like, I know that you spoke to like a big goal of the company is to share these resources, but yeah, maybe speak a little bit more about the YouTube videos and just what kind of content people can find if they want to come see your channel and what you guys are doing.
So we try to build as much presence as possible on social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. So these are basically the three main platforms, and we have our own blog as well. So blog, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So these are the main platforms that we're really active on. We're not active on Facebook or any of that because privacy concerns. So I'm more comfortable with YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn as social media platforms. The main content that you're definitely gonna find tutorials about our own apps on YouTube or on our other social media platforms, whether LinkedIn or Twitter. But other than that, as we like to bring value along the way, you can find a lot of tips and tricks, and some of them are really simple and others are really advanced. So several tips, tricks, small, quick tutorials, short videos that can show you new stuff that maybe you knew, maybe you didn't, about Revit, about Navisworks, about sometimes AutoCAD. Some introductions to what Forge is, how some glimpses about stuff we're working on that are not really usual, whether it's a certain Revit app that runs in the cloud on Forge design automation for Revit, whether it's a certain custom developed app that we've built and that we can share. So anything we can share to bring value and to spread information, that's what we're sharing on social media and on YouTube. So on YouTube, you can really go there to the channel and find there are several playlists. Some are showcase app tutorials, some showcase Revit tips, some try to teach people about Revit and about some aspects of Revit, ranging from really simple stuff to really advanced stuff. So that's the kind of stuff you can find on our social media. And you can just find the links and make sure to subscribe or follow or give us a connection and reach out. So some also another secret about social media, I manage all of those myself because I enjoy talking to users and to subscribers. I enjoy, so anyone that has a question or anyone that has a certain that needs a tip or anything within reason, so I always answer any direct messages. So just feel free to reach out and connect and subscribe and follow. So every social media has some you need to subscribe, others you need to connect, others you need to press the follow button. So for each social media, just make sure to connect and contact us, because I would reply. I would enjoy any conversation with anyone. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. That's good. Yeah, that's how we connected.
Yeah.
And yeah, you reached back out and talked to me right away. So feel free to drop Majd a line if you want to talk about software or coding or custom tools. I bet he'd love to chat you up about it. So I wanted to ask you about, what other kind of tools and resources you use, because you seem plugged in and really aware of what's happening in the industry right now. So where do you like to go get information about BIM or about, software development or that sort of thing?
So one great place to find information about anything related to our industry are the Autodesk forums. So the Autodesk forums are really stacked with so almost any. There's a lot of questions you may have that have already been asked by someone else. So just try the Autodesk forum. So anyone listening trying the Autodesk forum, you'll find a lot of stuff that you're thinking about and that have already been answered by someone who has an answer for them. The Autodesk forums are great. Resources. So there's definitely any search would start with a search engine. So starting a search and going to would lead you to several resources. So for programming, there's a Stack Overflow.com, which can give you a lot of also. So it's similar to the Autodesk forum, but it has more specific. So it's more specific to software development. But mainly starting a search within a search engine would lead you to where. So whatever my own advice to anyone that is starting to learn anything or needs advice, don't be afraid to use your search engine to search for anything, whether it's Google or any search. I'm not saying Google or not because I'm leaving that choice to the user, but don't be afraid to search for any question you have. Or don't hesitate to search for something before wasting time to try to solve it, or before asking, because there's a lot of questions you may have that are already answered. You might learn a lot along the way. So if you're doing something, just start doing it, and along the way, there's a lot of stuff that you'll discover yourself without searching, but there's a lot of other stuff that searching will just get you to the point. So searching is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's the first thing you kind of learn as you get into software development or any type of coding is you're not going to get too far unless you have figured out how to use online search engines as effectively as possible. And searching forums or searching YouTube videos and just really doing everything you can to search for online resources is a great start for any technical pursuit. So that's a great tip. I like what you said about just like going to the forums and searching through. I honestly I've been like directed to some of the Autodesk forums, but I've never like gone there first to search for items. So maybe I need to start to do that more when I'm running into Revit nonsense that's frustrating me.
Yeah, and on search engines, mastering search engines and advanced search and advanced keywords. For example, let's say the Autodesk forum. So, mastering an advanced search within a search engine can allow you to filter out any results and just give you ones that are specific to a certain site. Let's say the Autodesk forum. So that's why I always back when I was still a student, one of the things that were on my resume was great search skills. So, someone left and told me, "How would you put that on your resume?" So I sat him down and told him, "Let's try searching for stuff. What is something that you're not finding?" And we started searching for stuff using some advanced search skills. So investing in knowing your search engine and your advanced search is really great because it allows you to find stuff that usually you'd find on the, let's say, page 100 or page 150. You can narrow that down to the first page using some search skills. So always invest in that.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's a great tip. Like just always being aware of the search function in general, no matter what you're working in, PDF documents or like online codes and standards or, the search command or how to filter through data and parse out the interesting bits of information that you want to see is a invaluable skill. And I think that just like speaks to coding in general, kind of teaches you those things like how to take a big data set and do everything you can to filter through it as fast as you can. So I think that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about, what are your big thoughts on like where the industry is headed or things that you're excited about for the future of BIM and automation, Majd?
Yeah. So I'm really excited about some of the emerging web platforms that are really dedicated to our industry. So the main one that is currently being introduced by Autodesk, and that if you go back a year in time to AU 2021, you can see all keynote classes focused on Forge. So Forge is really a certain platform, a web platform that exposes several APIs to try and build the, let's say, solutions of the future. Some of these APIs are just running currently available software in the cloud, whether it's Revit. So you can run an instance of Revit remotely over a cloud server. And let's say you have a BIM 360 model that you want to schedule. So you want to schedule exports on a weekly basis from a BIM 360 server. Forge can enable you to do that. You can create your own backend Node.js or any technology you want for backend development and create your own backend server that is scheduled to do that once per week. And the Forge APIs, you have APIs for document management and for BIM 360. So you can create an entire BIM 360 project from Forge. There's a series of APIs called BIM 360 API and Autodesk Construction Cloud APIs that allow you to do that. So you can automate all that, create your project in BIM 360, create your models, initiate your models, all of that. And let's say you want to automate that task. We said exporting, let's say, several formats from BIM 360. There are APIs to do that within Forge, and you can just run a Revit server, have a backend server run a Revit instance in the cloud and automate that process. So Forge is there to try and provide a platform for all these functionalities, automating cloud storage, automating design, automating all of that in the cloud. Now, the question is, what will the platform of the future be? Will it be Forge, or will someone else come and create his own series of APIs that do that? So there's also Hyper, for example, that are introducing a similar platform. So it's a platform similar to Forge. Will they succeed in being the platform of the future, or will Autodesk have their own monopoly extended for another 40 years or 50 years? That's the main question. But what I see the future being is several APIs, several series of platforms and APIs, web APIs probably, that someone can just use all those APIs within his own, let's say, web app or website or whatever. And so it's a series of APIs that will define what the future will look like. Which API is it? Is it all of those APIs? But anyone that is not going to investigate in a new generation of APIs and a new generation of multi-platform compatibility platforms is gonna be left behind. That's what I'm definitely sure about. But for the future to come immediately, I think you're gonna need to give it like 5 or 10 years to have all those APIs be able to provide you with all the functionalities you need, to have everyone be on board with those APIs, and to find the person that is gonna create the platforms that is gonna use all of those APIs for all disciplines, not just for architecture or for MEP or for civil. So we need to achieve multidisciplinary functionality. We need to achieve platform compatibility. We need to achieve better performance, and we have also a lot of trends right now that are, and a lot of buzzwords that are being used: machine learning, digital twins, the multiverse. So these are a lot of buzzwords that you hear also within the BIM industry. Some of them are really just buzzwords. Others are really interesting to investigate in. So there's a lot of trends, and it's a constantly evolving business, and one needs to keep an eye open and to keep up with all the progress.
So the one you mentioned that really kind of piques my interest is I don't know. What kind of ideas do you think like machine learning could have as application to our industry? Like, it's just, I guess there is like a infinite amount of different things that you could try to pass through machine learning in order to get a trend or a function based on a building configuration. But yeah, I don't know if you have any specific thoughts on machine learning and how that could apply to our industry.
So I also had a class about that in EU 2020. I'll try to. That would range from just simple statistics of the data, which is also a trending topic, storing data over a maybe cloud database and extracting data from several formats, closed formats, to have a more decentralized system of data, and just running statistical functions to try and find relations between all of that. That can extend from that simple statistical process to maybe automating, having a certain virtual operators that can use reinforced learning to just operate the software and find the optimized solutions on its own, which is similar to things that are being done within the gaming industry. So, for example, you can go look up Mar.io. So it's a certain project where reinforced learning is used to have certain, let's say, software or a virtual gamer complete custom Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario World, in this case, I believe, levels. So a machine can just clear that level on itself. Similar technology can be used to train a certain algorithm to try and configure stuff, or try and just you give it, let's say, a floor plan. It would find the optimized solution to draw your ducts, draw your pipes, draw your place your sprinklers. So it's really a broad and vast domain. But what we can start with is the simple stuff. So using clustering to find simple patterns to, let's say, collect, for example, rooms together into HVAC zones. That's something Sean Fruin from Sigma AC Solutions has been working on. So he should be your next guest. You should have him on the podcast. He's really interesting and has a lot of thoughts about the matter. Maybe use a bit of clustering to, let's say, also align tags. So if you can find a pattern where a blank area is found on a certain drawing, you can just move your tags to that area by finding patterns and finding image recognition algorithms. So implementing such algorithms can help you do that. So simple stuff like that can be done right now. Maybe we can try investigating, try researching the other advanced stuff, reinforced learning, automating all of that, having a completely autonomous algorithm do all this stuff. But that's gonna wait a little bit, and that's gonna take time. And that's gonna take time to be trained and to achieve what we want. But we can start with the simple stuff. For example, using some fuzzy logic to match views to their sheets. That's something. So the tagging thing and the fuzzy logic matching thing are things that I've done for several firms that are featured at EU 2020. So these are things that are currently feasible and that we can implement. So let's just at least try to implement the simple things, and start small and then go big. I think we need to take that approach, and we can go there. We need some time, but it's not. I don't see it as impossible.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, just start with the leaders and the little things that give you pain on a day-to-day basis. But I think that's a great point. Well, Majd, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and just talking to me about software and BIM and your career. I appreciate that a lot. Where can people find you? We'll throw a bunch of links to the content and the different things we talked about in the description, but where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so you can reach out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube. So any platform we're on that has direct messaging, you can just send a direct message, and 99% of the time you're guaranteed to get an immediate reply. The other 1% is maybe a 24-hour delayed reply. And if not, if you prefer emails, you can also find our email on our website, on our contact page. So just check out our social media links, and just feel free to reach out at any time. Anyone, if you need help with something, if you need to ask a question, if you just if you use a tool and have feedback, so any kind of anything you have on mind. So on our contact page, I've also added something that if you just need someone to talk to, so for any reason, just don't hesitate to reach out. We'll always reply, and I enjoy. So one of the things that I enjoy most on this journey is making new friends, and that's how I guess we met. And this is something I enjoy, making new friends and making new connections, and that's what makes all the effort worth the time and worth the effort. So
yeah, I agree. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to share the episode with a friend if you enjoyed it. Don't forget that fire protection and life safety is serious business. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are by no means a professional consultation or a codes and standards interpretation. Be sure to contact a licensed professional if you are getting involved with fire protection and or life safety. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.